Hello everyone, so welcome to a new video. So I'm just going to quickly get this out the way. I've tried to reboot this channel multiple times and never actually uploaded the videos, but I lost access to it then as well, but I've finally got back into it today. Um, don't know if anyone is aware, but I had to cancel, delete everything on my main YouTube channel that wasn't astrology related. Reason being, it had travel vlogs and things like that on there with me and my best friends Chloe and Jack. But I actually started getting issues from that. People were giving harassment calls to my job and things like that. So to kind of protect myself and everyone around me, I had to delete the whole channel. Along with all of my TikToks, but that's that. But this account, I don't see the harm in trying to regenerate and, kickstart this account because I'm not gonna put more personal information such as where I live on this account or where I work on this account. So, and I think that the people that caused the problems came from TikTok. They didn't come from YouTube. So I'm going to just take it as a lesson. I'm all okay now, as far as in that sense. If any of you do know from my other accounts, but I'm just gonna turn my back on that time in my life and just look forward and become a bit more mature because I was doing things that were a little bit immature on TikTok. So let's just forget about all of that and look forward. So I'm finally going to upload this for real and try and reboot this astrology channel. So where I left off, now I've got back into it, I noticed that I was doing the series of the differences, the real world practical differences between the moon and the sun in each sign, and how that expression of that sign and its traits changes based on the planet that is doing the transiting. So, in that sense, I left off the series with a Libra video, and for some reason I uploaded it twice, the same video. I don't know how that happened, but it doesn't matter. Anyways, so obviously we are onto Scorpio in the order of the zodiac now. So today, as you can tell from the title, this is going to be differences between the Scorpio Sun and the Scorpio Moon energy in the real world. So Moon and Sun in general. I'll just go over very quickly again because I'm assuming most people will only watch these videos for their specific sign and not, watch all of the series of videos in order. I would actually recommend maybe if you are interested to watch maybe the videos for all three of your big three placements in astrology. So that would be whatever sign is your rising sign, if you know it, and then whatever sign is your sun and whatever sign is your moon. Maybe watch the videos for all three, even though it's comparing moon versus sun energetics um, uh, within each specific sign. Your big three might still resonate with what I'm saying, but just in case, going off the assumption that you've clicked on this because you are a Scorpio sun or moon, and obviously you only want to watch the video for your sign and not any other sign. Moon and sun in general. So the moon is the ruler of Cancer. So the moon in astrology represents emotion. It represents things that are undercover, private, hidden away. If you think of an analogy, the sun is like a spotlight. So whatever sign the sun is in your chart is going to almost have a spotlight shining on that area of life. And this is without going into more complicated dynamics like the houses, because that adds an extra layer of accuracy, but it's also a lot more complicated. But just ignoring the houses and just looking at your chart more, as an overview rather than diving into the technicalities. Your sun as an overview is basically the sign that your sun is in, those traits and those things that you could connect to the sign. If your sun is in that sign, then it's spotlighted. So basically, your personality is the most visible in these sort of areas, if that makes sense. So if you think of an analogy, the sun represents daytime. So things are clear, there is a lot of light available, so the sign is expressed more clearly on the surface. so more in your outward personality. If you think about the moon then, by comparison, the analogy for the moon would be nighttime, so it's dark, there's less light available, so things are more undercover, things are more hidden away. So, using that analogy, the moon represents your personality on a deeper, more internal level. Sometimes it's completely subconscious, so you're not even aware of it yourself. Or, as a bare minimum, it is very private. So, how you will be, personality wise, when you are completely alone in a room, completely, within your house, like in your own four walls, no one else is around, and you're just existing as yourself. How you will be in that moment could be like an analogy for your moon sign personality. Your sun is more like when people see you out in public and you're interacting socially with someone else, your personality spotlight will be on, your sun will be on. Your moon will be what's turned on when you are in private, when you're completely alone, things like that. Not obviously exactly accurate, but it just gives you an analogy. So how does this filter into the Scorpio sign? So Scorpio, they're the fixed water sign, so they're known to be very passionate, they are very intense, they lead with their heart, and they feel things very intensely. Negatives, they can be, very famous to be vindictive and grudge holding when someone does them dirty or does them wrong. They're a bit too overdone sometimes as far as the passion. It can be a bit over the top. They can struggle to follow logic because they are so wrapped up in their feelings, and it's a very subjective energy, Scorpio. So, what they feel as a result of a situation really does guide their actions in every way. So, and they are quite not narrow-minded, but they are so focused on to only the emotional side of life, so they struggle to balance that out with their rationality. However, they're also better than Cancer, for example, at restraining their feelings in the heat of the moment. So, Scorpio is more strategic with their emotion. So, they feel as deeply as Cancer, but they're not cardinal, so it's there all the time. So, if anything, they're more emotional more often than Cancer. But the difference with the Scorpio is that they don't react outwardly through emotion and lead outwardly with emotion like Cancer does, because they're not cardinal, they're fixed. They store it inside of themselves. So Scorpio is more strategic. They have a better control over their emotions. So even if they feel just as intensely emotional about something, they are less reactive on the surface. They're more cold and calculated because they can hold the anger inside and then lash out in the best way at the best possible time to cause the most impact. So taken to mean revenge, if a Scorpio is really angry at someone, they know exactly how to pinpoint the person's weaknesses, and then they will wait until the exact moment where they can pounce on those weaknesses, and it will have the most impact and hurt the person emotionally the most effectively, basically. Whereas a Cancer, in the heat of the moment, they can't restrain their feelings. They will just explode to the surface, and they'll have an emotional blow up, but it will be like almost like a meltdown. They'll be like, I'm fuming, and then they'll show up on the surface. But Scorpio doesn't do that. They are more strategic, as I say, about when they execute their emotional events. So, a Scorpio Sun is going to be exhibiting these typical Scorpio traits more obviously to other people. It will be more on the surface because it will be the Sun in Scorpio. So, Scorpio Sun is going to look more provocative, more sexual, more intense, more passionate, and more emotional. And they're going to look like they have a stronger desire to dominate and lead people and be the boss. It's going to be more outwardly obvious. Now, the moon in Scorpio obviously depends on what your sun is. The moon in Scorpio is going to have these same Scorpio themes, but it's going to be used to guide them emotionally. So it will give them a sense of emotional security and a sense of stability on an emotional level to embrace these Scorpio traits. And also, the sun is kind of what you're striving to become actively throughout your lifetime. whereas the moon just exists already as itself. So the moon is actually more close to the pure energy of the sign itself than the sun is, because the sun, it's filtered more. The energy is filtered more because it's through the sun. So because the sun rules Leo, it's more showy, more extreme. It's got a stronger energy on its own. So when it interacts with any sign, it alters the energy of that sign more. Whereas the moon, it just blends with the traits of the sign without altering it as much. So that's another thing. So the moon is more actually Scorpio, and the sun is more acting like a Scorpio, or they embody these Scorpio traits through their personality on the surface. But it's not as deep with the Scorpio Sun. It's more like, this is my outward presentation. Whereas the Scorpio Moon, it's like, this is literally who I am on a deep heart and soul level. And I can't just choose to turn these traits off when I want to turn them off, because they're just always there. That is my heart and soul. Like, so the moon is these traits, whereas the sun shows the traits, but it's not the traits, like, in a core level, if that makes sense. So the Scorpio Sun can sort of choose, and they're more adaptable about how they express the Scorpio traits, because they're not as deep. It's more on the surface. The Scorpio Sun is, they look more intense in these Scorpio traits, but actually they are less intense in these Scorpio traits than the moon would be, because the moon is going to deeply feel all of this, whereas the sun is going to sort of present this, but they won't feel it as deeply on the inside. Obviously, in that case, with the sun, it will depend what their moon sign is. So when it comes to outwardly looking sexual, expressing a desire to lead and dominate other people on an emotional level, looking quite passionate, provocative, the sun will show this more clearly, but the moon will just have this stronger inside of themselves, but it won't be shown unless you're really close with the person. So the Scorpio moon has a stronger relative need to dominate other people. It has a stronger relative need to feel top dog in a relationship or in a social setting even. Like, a Scorpio sun might be the type that outwardly looks like they want to dominate and lead. So say they shout at a worker in a shop because the worker in the shop doesn't want to give them a refund, for example. They will try and dominate the person in that situation. So they will be like, they'll get annoyed and they'll be like, what do you mean you're refusing to give me a refund? This is unacceptable. You owe me a refund. Whereas they'll be showing this, but the Scorpio moon will have this even more intensely, but they probably won't actually show it. That's the difference. So, or even the dynamic is different. So a Scorpio sun will outwardly defend their ego, because that's also, the sun is your ego. The Scorpio sun will embody Scorpio traits to defend their ego. So say a shop worker refuses to refund them and they're a Scorpio sun, they will protect themselves and show their personality. So they'll dominate in subtle ways, like in interactions with people. So they'll be like, why are you not giving me a refund? I deserve it. But the moon, it will be in different aspects of life that they'll dominate, and it will be much more extreme. So with the Scorpio moon, it would be in close relationships, maybe family, friends, romantic partner. That is really deep relationships is where it will come out, their desire to dominate, if Scorpio is their moon instead of their sun. So Scorpio moon, they need to feel on a deep level like they are the boss. So they're probably the one in a relationship that would wear the pants. They're the one that is leading the relationship over the other person. Not in a horrible way. It's just that for them to feel emotionally secure in themselves, they have to feel like top dog. They have to feel like they're dictating what is going on. Whereas the sun will have this on a more shallow level. The sun will just be like, oh, you hurt my pride and ego, so I'm going to dominate you to defend myself, and they'll show it on the surface, even in public. So that is an example of a difference. The Scorpio sun will dominate people in small everyday ways. The Scorpio moon will dominate people on a much more intense, deeper, more internal level for the aspects of life that are more serious. It won't just be day-to-day domination in small ways. It will be more like intense domination over the things that really matter in life. So it will be, I need to dominate you in this relationship so that I can feel emotionally secure myself, as opposed to, I want to dominate you in front of other people because you hurt my ego. So that the latter being the sun and the former being the moon. So that is just an example of a difference. So the intense energy, sexuality, potential for aggression, need to dominate is the moon. Sorry, that it's more so Scorpio moon. So the moon is a need, and the sun is a want. That's another way that you could contrast them. Is that the sun is your personality, so you're going to show it off, but the moon you have to keep it up, but you also don't struggle to keep it up because it's just naturally who you are on a deeper level. So the moon is like, you don't wake up thinking, I feel like a Scorpio today, or I want to look like a Scorpio today. The moon is going to wake up thinking, I am a Scorpio, so I need to, keep this going in order to protect my emotional security. So it's more intense, it's more personal, it's deeper. The difference that you could see happening as well is that Scorpios are known in general for being intense, being passionate, and a little bit negative and pessimistic at times. But the Scorpio sun probably is less pessimistic than the moon. The moon is actually very heavy and very pessimistic and negative in its way of thinking when it's in Scorpio. The sun less so. So the sun in the Scorpio is more likely to be more light and carefree by comparison to the moon in the same sign of Scorpio. So also, because it's a water sign, you'd think it would be more comfortable in the moon than the sun placement, but not when it's Scorpio specifically. And here's why. The reason is that the moon is actually fallen in Scorpio because the moon is exalted, in other words, strengthened in Taurus, and Taurus is Scorpio's opposite sign on the wheel. So that then means, by association, that Scorpio is where the moon falls. In other words, the moon is dead in Scorpio. So the moon is very weak when it's in Scorpio. So even though you'd think the moon and water sign Scorpio would match better, it actually doesn't. So what this causes is this deep internal emotional unrest inside a Scorpio moon, because the moon needs to it needs to feel, needs to give itself this feeling of emotional security. And if your moon is Scorpio, it does it in a Scorpio way, deep down, but it struggles because the moon is not strong in the Scorpio sign. So the sun actually feels more comfortable in Scorpio than the moon would in Scorpio. So the sun in Scorpio, it's going to be more of an easy fit. The energies blend a little bit better. So the sun carries the Scorpio energy with a greater ease than the moon does. So the sun will channel this into outward displays of leadership, dominance, passion, following their heart over their head in all aspects of life. They'll outwardly do this. Also, the sun is an active masculine principle and drive. So the sun also is proactive and it makes you do in accordance with the sign it's in. So the Scorpio sun is going to actively lead through Scorpio energy for their personality, whereas the moon in Scorpio is just going to exist as this Scorpio energy. But there's a tension with the Scorpio moon that there is not with the Scorpio sun, because the Scorpio sun feels more ease. So the sun just exists comfortably within Scorpio, whereas in the moon it doesn't. So the moon Scorpio has this intensity because not only is it deeper because it is the moon than the sun, but it's also not comfortable in that position. So it has this underlying tension which is constantly present. So the Scorpio moon is actually very heavy and very dark, and there is this tension always brewing to some degree or another under the surface with a Scorpio moon position. Whereas the sun is more light and carefree relative to the moon. So although Scorpio is already this energy which is very heavy, very serious, very potentially pessimistic and negative, anyway, it is that much more so in the moon, whereas the sun, it's kind of balanced by the sun itself, because the sun's energy is more light and carefree and proactive, and instead of dwelling in its feelings, it will act to change its feelings, if that makes any sense. So a Scorpio sun, they're going to feel intensely emotional and negative if something goes wrong, because they are a water sign, but they will not stew in the feelings for as long. They're going to feel their own feelings that the situation has caused them to feel, but then they will want to do something to change. They'll want to change something in order to proactively deal with their feelings. So, say they lose their job, they're going to stew in the depression that causes them for a while, but then they're going to do something to actively remedy the situation based off of their feelings about the situation. Whereas the Scorpio moon will feel it more intensely, the depression, and instead of being able to do something to actively change it, because the moon is a passive, soft feminine principle, it will just stew in these feelings, which are already more intense, and they're also harder to change because it won't like proactively deal with it. Similar to the Cancer sign, the Cancer Sun, they use their feelings to guide their practical actions, whereas the Cancer Moon is heavier because they feel more intensely emotional, but then they also don't proactively deal with it. They just let it stew inside of themselves. And it's similar to Scorpio and Pisces too, the other water signs, is that the feelings are even stronger than the Sun, though less visible, but they will stew in the feelings instead of feeding them and then proactively doing something to deal with them, which is what the sun does in water signs. So yeah, the Scorpio moon is very dark, very heavy. Their desire to get revenge is literally genuine, whereas the Scorpio sun, they will say someone really makes them angry, gets under their skin, betrays them. Say they get cheated on. Scorpio would be absolutely furious about that, but the Scorpio sun is more likely to actively show their frustration and anger and make a plan to get revenge. Whereas the Scorpio moon is less likely to tell other people how angry they are. They're less likely to actively make a plan of revenge on the surface, but they're actually going to want to get revenge on a deeper level. So the Scorpio sun is probably not as dangerous as the Scorpio moon. They're both very dangerous, but relatively, if you've pissed one of them off, you would prefer it to be a Scorpio sun rather than a Scorpio moon, because the Scorpio sun, they'll be more obvious about the fact that they hate you, and they will probably say to you, I want to get revenge on you, but they won't actually do it. Whereas the Scorpio moon, they won't forget, they will not move on, and they will not forgive you, because Scorpio is already quite unforgiving. When it's in the moon, they're even more unforgiving than when it's in the sun, because the moon takes that as such a deep betrayal. Because this is how they feel inside of their heart and soul, if you cheat on them, they will take it as such a deep, serious betrayal of their trust. So they will never forgive you, and they will be very, very hate-filled towards you. But they won't necessarily make an open declaration of war. So they're not going to be like, oh, my partner cheated on me, now I hate him and I'm going to do something to ruin his new relationship to get revenge on him. The sun's likely to make that statement be heard by the world, but the moon, they won't say that. They'll just feel it, and they'll feel it stronger. So instead of, I want to break up your new relationship because you cheated on me in the last relationship, and saying that, the moon will be, I want to shoot you in the head. I just want to kill you. So you see the difference in the level of intensity. They won't say it to anyone, but they will feel it. And they will feel the emotion more strongly. Obviously, this is figurative. I'm not saying that a Scorpio moon is going to shoot you in the head if you cheat on them. Obviously not. This is just an example that I'm trying to give to explain the difference in the intensity level. So when they seek revenge, the Scorpio sun will probably be like, oh yes, I definitely hate you. They'll tell everyone they hate you, and then they will write down a list of, let me do this, and then this, and then this, in this exact strategic, cold and calculated way, and then that will have the maximum impact as far as getting revenge on them. But the moon will just feel, I need to get even. And it's not I want to get even, because that would be the sun. It's I need to get even. Sorry, I keep like mixing my words up today because I'm not used to recording. I haven't done obviously this channel for 2 years, so I'm rambling a little bit, I know. But basically, yeah. So the sun will be I want to get even to protect their ego, their image, their personality, their identity, or to proactively do something with the feelings they've got. But the moon is going to be I need to get even. So the key word is want versus need. And the intensity is the other key difference. So Scorpio moon is going to theoretically get so angry and so hate-filled that they might just want to kill you, whereas the sun will openly declare their hatred in the same situation, but it will not be as intense. It will be, well, I am going to make sure that your new partner dumps you because that's revenge. That's what you get for cheating on me in our last relationship. They will try and break up the new relationship to get even and to settle the score. But they won't like want to physically kill their partner. So, you know, it's theoretical. It's not obviously actually going to happen, but that's just the example of the differences in the intensity level, and that the moon will stew and get more and more hate-filled over time, whereas the sun won't, because they'll act on it more quickly and get it out of their systems. So that's the other main difference. Because, yeah, sun strives to become its sign, moon already naturally exists as its sign, and that's the key difference. So I think I explained that fairly well. If I haven't, let me know respectfully, keyword respectfully, please, in the comments. I don't know if this channel was going to get views now, because obviously it didn't get many views, but it did get more than my vlog style content back when I used to post on here. I know I haven't for so long, so it might be dead. But I'm expecting a gradual build up, but it's probably going to be very slow. Anyways, if anyone is here, thank you for watching. I'm now going to watch back some of my older videos in this series, comparing the sun and moon differences to see what I sort of talked about, and then see if this one followed the similar structure, or if I've left anything obvious out compared to those other videos for the other signs. And if I think that I haven't done it very well, then I can always do a follow-up video later, add any extra details if that becomes necessary in my eyes or anyone else's eyes. Let me know. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I think I am back finally on this channel, and I'm happy that at least I've still got a channel going. Goodbye. By the way, I do not edit. And on this channel it doesn't really matter because I just overlay pictures anyway. A lot of people were rude on my other vlog channels when it was around, saying that I didn't edit properly or I couldn't hold a camera. That's because I didn't want to. I wanted it to be raw, real life content. But on this channel, I don't expect comments like that because I'm not editing, and I don't need to because it's literally just a picture that's going to be overlaid on the screen. Just making that clear. But anyways, thank you for listening. I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Have a good day.